Hello guys and welcome to Witchcraft Criminal History. How are you doing today? Hopefully you're doing well. We're doing a book review today on a book by Raven Grimassi, and it's called What We Knew in the Night. I got this from one of the mystery boxes from Antipodean Witchcraft, and he came in one of the mystery boxes, so yay, and I finally read it all. Alright. A little bit thing about Raven Grimassi is that he has been a witch for quite some time. There's a picture of him at the back. That's him. And apparently he passed away last year by the looks of it. He passed away last year. And he's just sharing his knowledge, of witchcraft. Because he's a high priest, high priest in Wicca. Alright, let's get a little bit, onto the nitty-gritty of the book. This book's really, really interesting. I found it was actually very, very good to learn from. He really gets it in there, and he really explains things what are going on. And he really explains how to perform rituals and certain rituals, how the rituals performed, the history of the rituals, and also the history of witchcraft itself. It is really, really interesting. Like, he had something on here, what witches originally were called back in ancient Greece. And where we get the term, pharmacy. If I say pharmacy, it's a chemist. But pharmacy comes from the Greek word pharmaceute, and pharmaceute pretty much is an old-fashioned word for witchcraft and dealing with herbs and herbal magic, which is really, really interesting. You're never going to think of the pharmacist in the same light again, will you? Alright. So, yeah, you got the interesting thing about what happens, the history of witchcraft that happened in ancient Greece. Which is really, really good. It's really good to learn what the history of things and the history of how, witchcraft, has evolved over time. And he has really gone right through it, in great detail with excellent ways of trying to explain things to you. He explains the relationship, of your tools, what they are, what's anthem, or the anthem, or which is dagger, the chalice, what does a pentagram mean, what does it do, what does the 4 towers stand for, north, south, east, and west. What do they symbolize? Which is really, really good. It's really, really good, and he's also dealing with the elements as well. He also explains about the elements, fire, earth, wind, and water. And same with the towers. It gets a little bit confusing because I'm reading another book, and this is going to do with the northern hemisphere, not the southern hemisphere. And once again, it gets a bit, it goes reverse in via the southern hemisphere. For example, I think that, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm just doing this from memory, but the northern tower is for fire in the western hemisphere, and in the northern hemisphere. But I think it's in the south, in Australia. I think it's in the south. I could be wrong. Or in the southern hemisphere. We're a little bit backwards. I'm still trying to learn which way is which. I know it did say it in here. Which ones were which. But it gets a bit confusing when you're dealing with it. And apparently also with the towers, it also changed where your location is as well. So really, where I am at the moment, the East Tower, to me, the East Tower would be water. water will be the East Tower where I am, because there's a big bloody ocean in the east. You know, if you keep going that way, and that's east, you will probably, you won't see New Zealand because we're too high up for New Zealand, but if you keep going that way, you're probably going to eventually hit South America, Mexico, and America. If you keep going that way. So we're close to, you know, to the ocean. And I think if you really go by your general, you know, location, to me, you know, in the west, you know, west will be Earth. Because Australia's a big country and all you got there is land, 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 and land towards the west. And I mean, stacks of it, I'm on the east coast. So you can figure that one, you know, that one out and just try to figure out which one's going to be fire and which one's going to be wind, you know, and air. So one of, even the north's going to be the wind and south's going to be, going to be fire. But it's to do with the sun, you know. So, I get confused. But like I said, where I am, you know, by locations, because this is to another book, you know, east would be water, west would be earth. That's where I am. Apparently you can do that. But to figure that out, it gets a little bit more difficult. But anyway, we're getting off topic and getting off, which is a little bit going off from this book off to the other book what I'm reading at the moment. That's really the way it gets a bit confusing. But regardless, both of them really emphasizes on that. You know, it really, really emphasizes on that. And that'll be the next book I'll be revising once it's finished. It's a lot bigger than this one. It's a lot bigger. And also the author of that one is Australian, so come from down here is a little bit more to do with the Southern Hemisphere, which is good for us Southerners. Alright, another thing which is really, really good in here, it also tells you, you know, what elements things are. You know, and how to initiate certain elements. You know, whether you want to cleanse it via fire, there's a ritual for that. If you want to cleanse it via water, there's a ritual for that. Same with air. And trust me, if you do it by air, you're going to be there for a little while. Usually with air, because the thing with air, and according to this book, like for example, if you're doing your anthem or your chalice or your pentagram, if the pentagram probably be better with earth than air, that pretty much you have to hang it off of a tree branch for a couple of days to allow all the air, you know, air magic come through it. Either on a tree branch or on the doorknob. If you're in the closet. But if you're in the closet, you better make sure that no one sees it. And I personally, for me, I wouldn't want to hang something on a tree. Especially like my little trees are there, my little plants. If I put an anthem on them, they'll fall over. There's not much of them. But, you know, regardless, you know, and they got that thing, you know, how to do, you know, how to, you know, cleanse items and to awaken them. You know, and also the cycles of the moon, you know, the full moon, the waning moon, the waxing moon. What the moon is. And rituals to do with that. And how to create, you know, a sacred space out in the garden. Heck, I would like to do that, but I don't have a garden. And also, if I did something like that and buried in one of my pot plants, my neighbours are finding out. I gotta put my neighbours, I don't want them to realise that I'm a witch. So, not a good idea, and I'm in an apartment, so that ritual I cannot really perform. I'd like to though one day. Be interesting. If I'm a little bit Jews that were burying crystals. It's pretty much him creating a pentagram with a crystal on the side, in the middle, and on a full moon or just before full moon, you're buried in the earth. And you get a dagger or the anthem, to bring the star, impregnate the moon, and put that into the pentagram, which is buried in the earth. And every time you want to do something, you do the same ritual over and over and over again. And that pentagram remains buried in your garden. So, yeah, you got that bit as well, which is really, really good. Really, really interesting. A bit about it. And also talks about, how to do a pentagram on yourself. If you're going to do it with a pentagram. Mainly with healing and all that. You can do all of that. And also another thing, he also speaks about, he also speaks about, other aspects as well, to dealing with, with pentagrams and all that. And that if you got a pentagram, you got to really have a pentagram because that's your shield. It's your shield, to protect you. And when you got a pentagram, the towers recognize you as a witch. And that pretty much covers even people who are not witches. If you've got a pentagram, the 4 towers are going to see you as a witch. And they will recognize you as one of their own. And they'll come when you call them. But you've got to be very, very wary in regards to that. There is like a little bit of blood magic in here as well. So if you want a bit of blood magic, they do talk about. There's not really too much depth, but they do. They also talk a lot about divination. There's quite a few things about divination. Like, heck, there was one form of divination in there that would have for yes or no questions when you're dealing with your ancestors. That you get a skull, a human skull, and you will put a couple of beans in your, into the skull. One side would be blank, because you'll need to think about 2 beans, and one with a cross, and I think one with a minus, or something like that, and you'll put them in there, into the skull, and you light pretty much what I've seen them in Australia, we call them vampire candles. They're black on the outside and red on the inside. And you light it, and as soon as the wax starts dripping off to the side, once you start doing that, the ancestors are ready to communicate. Sorry, I'm just getting a bit distracted because my cat's going crazy at the moment. Being a typical tiddles. But anyway, you would light that, and once their wax starts coming off, starts dripping down the sides of the candle, the ancestors are ready to answer your questions. And you want to ask a question, shake. Ouch! Do you mind, Mason? That's my fingers. On my arm, sorry. And by doing that, you would shake the skull with the question in mind, and there's different meanings. Like, I think if you get one, I think it's like, say, if you get one which is plus, it means if that one comes out, it means yes, it's alright. Because I think they have to do 3 times or something like that, but I'm not quite sure. The plus is yes, minus is no, plus and minus means maybe, and if it's completely blank, it's undecided. So you got that, which is quite interesting. So they've also got a lot of things here to do with your ancestors as well, if you're into ancestor worship. So you got that as well. And there's also, it explains about palm reading as well, scrying, tarot, oracle. He also goes into that as well. Not in too much detail, but he does go into it. So yeah, so really, it's a really good book. It's a fascinating book. Would I recommend this book to others? Yes, especially if you are new. If you're new into witchcraft, this would be a fantastic book to get. Absolutely fantastic. If you're new and you're getting into witchcraft, it is fantastic. absolutely fantastic if you're going into witchcraft. But it's also good, if you're a bit of a more experienced witch, because this can brush you up. Like, as it is above, so is below. And it also explains a little bit about, what we mean by so mote it be, and all that, and blessed be. It also describes that. Like, I really, really enjoyed reading this book. It was fascinating to read. Took me a while to read it. But that being said, it was really, really good. There's nice illustrations in here as well. Like, for example, that it explains you about things which they're talking about, that, and that's the thing where you're buried to the ground. Like, really, I'm really pleased that I read this. That I read this book, What We Knew in the Night. Would I buy another book of his? If I see one, I probably would, because it's really, really fascinating. And he goes through it with you, like, in baby steps, explaining things, demonstrating the history of it. So he definitely knows what he's doing, and I think he's a high priest, in Wicker. So this is more likely to do with Wicker. And also another thing in it, yes, there's a lot of things about Hecate. Ow, Mason, do you mind? Sorry, I'm just getting attacked by my cat. For my familiar, I don't know what's up with him. He's being a cat. But anyway, there's a lot of things in here to do with Hecate. Hecate and Diana. Both of these goddesses comes up in this book over and over and over again. However, that being said, although this was a very, very minute part of it, very, very small, there is some things about Hephaestus and Vulcan, also in this book as well. So if you are after things in regards to Hephaestus, if you're a witch dealing with Hephaestus, or dealing with Vulcan, this also might be a book for you. Yes, there's not really too much about Hephaestus and Vulcan, but he is in here. I guarantee you, Hephaestus does appear in here. And I know just with a lot of other things, like I've got some deities who are very hard to find. And I think Hephaestus and Vulcan probably fall into that same category. There's not really too much about them in regards to witchcraft. But he does mention in here, which is really, really great. None really to do with my Kemetic beliefs. So there's nothing here in Egyptian ways. So there's no Egyptian deities in here. All there is, Hecate. Like, this is very good for a book for Hecate. Same as Diana. Both Diana and Hecate are quite prevalent, in this book. So the thing that pretty much mentioned right through the entire book, both Hecate and Diana. So, yeah, I really enjoyed reading this book. It was a fantastic book. Love it. I'll probably read it again once I go through my library. And the book what I'm reading at the moment is called White Witchcraft by Lucy Cavendish. And she's an Australian author. And also she, as you've probably seen with quite a few of my videos, is also, does a lot of oracle cards as well. So I'm doing things about her, and both of these books complement each other. They both complement each other, and they both confirm everything, especially in regards to the towers. Both of them dealing with the towers, which is really, really good. So if you're interested in towers, this book will be a good one. And for those of us in the south, White Magic by Lucy Cavendish, is also another brilliant book for that. But I'm only just beginning to read through that one, so I'm only just beginning to read through it. So it's going to be some time before I do a review on that one. I do not know what I'm going to be reading after this, because I am using the same tool I've been doing with my cards. And anyway, I go via the vibrations of the books, and which book gives off the most vibration. It is the book which is going to be read next. And it was White Magic by Lucy Cavendish, which gave up the vibes this time. So which one of these ones comes up next? I have no idea. I've got a nice collection, and they're growing, which is really, really good. And also got more books which are coming. So I'm getting my collection of books, and I am reading through them. Some of them dealing with crystals, some of them dealing with fairy magic, mermaid magic. That is a thing, apparently. I've got a book on mermaid magic and general witchcraft in general, and also with palmistry. Alright, if you like this video, please like, subscribe. Have a great day, and blessed be.